All right. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our international visitors, Ian and Brian from Thailand, and who else have we got? That's it. Yeah. This is our Christmas meeting, and unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for the couple of internationals and a couple of outsiders that wouldn't have been able to come to our Christmas meeting. We've had to have a Zoom meeting due to not enough people wanted to come out and have a face-to-face meeting. So we'll have a Zoom. So we've got the Zoom meeting starting today for the Christmas meeting. John, sorry, I haven't got the dancing girls. They were unavailable via Zoom. But they say they'll come next year if we're allowed to have a face-to-face. All right, without any further ado, we've got seven people. 1, 2, 4, 6 people doing a presentation. Stephanie, you're first up. So I'll start the sharing on my screen, and then you can start your presentation. All right, before we start, can you just make sure that everyone just mutes themselves so we don't have any background noise? Any questions? Oh, because there's probably only a few of us, I think we can wait until at the end of each presentation, and then if you want to ask any questions, just ask them. The meeting's going to be recorded and it will be available on our website fairly shortly after the meeting, hopefully. All right, Stephanie, all up to you.
Well, hi, everyone. I'd like to preface this by saying Frank asked for something fun for Christmas. So this is not serious philately at all. This is really a bit of a thing that I wrote when I was the PDO of the APF, and we had to go back, Frank. Back.
Hang on. Oh, yeah, hang on.
Back.
I am, don't worry. Just keep on talking.
What? Here we go. That's better. Stay there. And one of my tasks, the worst of the tasks, was to write a monthly article for Stamp News, and I always tried to make it topical. And one of the things that I did, in fact, in Christmas 2020, a year ago, was to talk about Christmas feasts around the world. So I thought we'd have some fun and talk about food, because it's not only the season of heaps of events, but it's also the season of food, which unfortunately, due to the fact that this is Zoom, we're not sharing with Frank right now. Most of this exhibit, or if you can call it an exhibit, is self-explanatory. And at the end of it, maybe we can all have a chat about what we're going to do and eat up for Christmas. So really, Christmas food is one of the big themes of stamps around the world, and that's what we're trying to talk about now. Food is different across the world. Christmas is celebrated differently, and the philately around the world reflects those differences in the stamps. Okay, so next slide, Frank, and we'll talk about Great Britain. While we're in this, here's Great Britain, and a Christmas dinner is eaten on the 25th. And in Australia, we tend to eat very much in the same way as Great Britain does. I know I go to a friend and she serves all the turkey and the roast ducks and the goose and all the rest of it. And I wonder why, when we're sitting there in sort of temperatures of about 30 degrees, why we ever think, how come we're eating this food on the 25th of December in Australia? In Britain, it kind of makes sense. They've got the crackers, which everyone pulls. They have the turkeys. And turkey actually isn't really traditional. It only came in Britain quite late on in the piece, but in the 16th century, before that, they really ate goose and the very rich ate swans and things like that, which I'm quite happy we moved to Turkey. And we've got a plum pudding. Okay, keep going. In France, of course, it's completely different. It really is unlike Australia the night before Christmas Day and the feast. I'm not a good pronunciation of French at all. Charles, how do you say? Is it Reveille or
Oui.
Revielle? Well, however you say it in France.
Yeah. Rpsv.
Reveille, there you go. And that apparently means waking, staying awake until midnight. And their dishes also include an enormous feast. And they also have, as you can see, the stamp there celebrates a market that is held in France. And in Italy, it's completely different. It's not that far from France, but there they do seafood, 7 dishes in this feast called the Vigilia. I actually have an idea. I wrote down somewhere in the article, this is only part of it. The type of dishes include salt cod, baked cod, fried calamari, fried shrimp, linguine with lobster sauce, octopus salad, and shrimp cocktail. It's not a bad way. I think Australia would do better in Christmas days to copy Italy and not Great Britain, but there you are. And of course, we do have, and the shops are full of the panettone, which Italy has all the time at Christmas. The cake. You know that, well, most of you know the cake, don't you? I hope so. Okay, and who do we have next, Frank? Scandinavia. Right. I've been there, and I love their smorgasbord, and again, I think it's a better tradition than our hot ham and turkey for us. But in Finland, they have this, gravlax, salmon, herring, all on rye bread. And they've got a tradition which I think must be similar around the world. Their dessert, not quite the plum pudding we're used to. It's a cold rice pudding, but they put an almond in it. And the person with the almond, who finds the almond, gets a present. And I think I'm going to adopt that because too many teeth get broken on the sixpence, which I think we follow in the British system. And I was interested, this research, while I was doing the research for this, I was really fascinated by some things. I was fascinated to learn that candy canes used to be straight and all one colour. And you can read what happened, that apparently it was just somebody who was trying to keep their singers in check who made them curved and stripy. So there you go, lots of traditions. Scandinavia. Keep going. Whoops, we jump? Oh, we want to go to, we'll do USA. They do cookies, lots and lots of cookies, gingerbread cookies, house cookies. And it's interesting the way the stamps of Christmas of the various countries, it's not good for Latvia. I'm not pretending it is, guys, by the way, but isn't it nice the way the stamps reflect the culture? And all the Christmas stamps seem to have the food of the country on board. And Canada's very much, even though it's British, and its dinner is very much like Australia and Great Britain, and it does the turkeys and the hams and all the rest of it. But for dessert, they do the American cookies and tarts and shortbreads. So they have the best of both worlds or the worst of both worlds. I'm not quite sure which one the worst, I think. I'm not fond of gingerbread houses. However, for those who like it, America has it over Christmas. Okay, Frank, and in South America, right, theirs is completely different. So here we are in Asia, and I guess the picture of the stamp, the series that was put out, tells more of a story than I can, and you can read about the delicacies that they serve, dried salmon and locally made eggnog. Look, I'm sure it's delicious and I'd really like to try it one day. It's a total feast, apparently. So that will be interesting. And tamales in Costa Rica, I think we've all had some of those, and they're not bad. But the other dishes, they're, of homemade eggnog and roast pork and Christmas cake. It all looks really exciting. So there you go. The Honduras and South America, completely and utterly different. You would not think you were at a Christmas feast at all if it wasn't for that ham right in the center. It seems to be the one consistent thing across all the nations. And finally, I think, is it finally? I'm not sure. Finally, Philippines, they also have a total feast. They also do it at night. They do it after the family come home from church, and they actually fast for the whole day before this feast. And their food they do have the ham. The ham is consistent, but you also have a ball of Edam cheese and pasta for dessert. It sounds interesting, I think. It would be good to try. I'm not sure where I'd like to be, but anywhere other than Japan, because apparently in Japan, what they like to do is to have Kentucky Fried Chicken. Would you believe it? This happened back in the 1970s, and there are queues and queues of people in Japan. You have to order in advance just to get Kentucky Fried Chicken for Christmas. So I reckon that's not a good idea at all. And that's my contribution to Christmas food. So Frank, maybe everyone can tell us what they're having for Christmas dinner.
All right, guys. Anyone want to make any comments?
It'd be interesting to know really what the major population actually eat, because there's a lot of pretty poor people in some of these countries.
Yeah, it's true.
A lot of this food, though, isn't particularly expensive from what I can see. I think that's possibly why ham is so consistent.
Okay.
You're right.
But KFC,
Right, but this is not this is absolutely true. Apparently, it is the feast of Christmas. Isn't that amazing?
oh,
KFC is big in Japan.
Well, it must be, but
it's a power of advertising, because back many years ago, somebody in Japan did a big advertising campaign to have KFC for Christmas, and they fell in love with it, and now it's become a tradition. So the power of marketing.
It's a bit
not
like
just
Pepsi Cola
advertising,
in
it's
America,
lemmings.
isn't it?
Sorry, it's lemmings in which everybody copies everybody else, which to me is subhuman.
I don't know. I think it was somebody's really, really good idea. I can think of a lot of other chains who are kicking themselves. I mean, you
just
know.
tell the Colonel.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if they'd have got in first, you know, it could have been a sort of Big Mac.
Absolutely. Or Pizza Hut.
Yeah. Now that would have been better. We could have had ham on pizza, you know.
I'd still go for sushi sashimi.
All right, any other comments?
I just make a very small comment before we have an international situation. A lot of the Canadian people speak French and not English, of course.
Oh, that's true.
Yes.
But their tradition is not
sure.
the French one. It's interesting you said. Well, according to what I researched, I could be wrong, although maybe it's split in two. Maybe some of them go to mass and have the big meal and then go to their friends and have the turkey the next day. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of these foods, of course, wouldn't be very welcome by the Jewish fraternity, would they?
Well, there's ham and ham and ham and ham, yeah,
Yeah,
And pork.
and pork.
ham and pork take over Christmas, I think.
Yeah, mind you, as Charles says, I'm not sure that they care what happens at Christmas anyway.
That's right.
No, true.
Probably the pigs do.
And the
All right,
turkeys.
All right, we'll go on to our next presenter is Alan Shatton.
Okay, let's go.
Serious flatly.
So
Wait till you get to mine.
I think most of you know that I collect Tasmanian postmarks and postal stationery. And one thing I like to do is to get a postcard where the postmark matches the scene on the back.
That's pretty cool.
So I've got a collection here of postcards with postmarks matching the scene on the back to some extent that were sent for Christmas. So the first one is Kingston Beach. It's uncommon, not that rare. And there's a view of Browns River, which is Kingston today on the back. So that's very good for my collection because the postcard and the postmark match. Next one, please, Frank. This is from Beaconsfield. It's a very common postmark. It's wishes, every good wish for a Merry Christmas. And it's got a picture of Sidmouth Old Church on the River Tamar, just down the road from Beaconsfield. So that's also a good success for my postcard collection. Next one, please. This one's from Chudley Junction, which is 17 kilometres west of Deloraine, which is west of Launceston. It's a fairly scarce cancellation. And it's got a view of Denison Gorge on reverse, which is about 100 kilometres from Chudley. It has nothing to do with Chudley at all. So this is a postcard that I bought in anticipation of success. But it's next one, please, Frank. This one is from Northdown, which is between Devonport and the North Tamar. It's a pretty scarce card, rated 7 minus. It's sent from a place called Laruma, which is on Port Sorell. It's called Hawley Beach today. And it's got a view of Lilydale Falls on the reverse, which is also 100 kilometres away. So that's another failure for my postcard collection. I thought they were close, but they're not. So that's 4 postcards. 2 of them are successful and 2 of them are failures. My last exhibit, if you could go to the next one, that's not me.
No, that's you.
That's Ian Gregg.
It's great.
Yep.
That's it. You're done.
No, I've got 2 more.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Oh, you've missed my highlights.
Did I?
You've cut out my highlight.
Oh, no.
I know.
I'm so distressed. Oh,
You-
I'm going to resign from the club. Move on.
All right. Eddie, sorry about that. But I thought you only had 4. There's only 4 on the presentation on the thing.
I sent 6.
Tell us about the others, Alan.
Yeah, tell us about the others.
Well, it's hard to describe the others, but the other one was a letter from Campbelltown to Launceston in about 1853.
Hold it up to the screen in front of your face.
Yes, and I showed this at the postal stationery meeting this week. It was at a Camptown stamp, a first allocation number 18 cancellation on a courier stamp, and it had a Launceston arrival mark, which is very rare. And it was an appeal to William Johnston, the general merchant, to send a keg of rum because the writer feared he would not have enough for the Christmas.
That is gold.
And I'm sorry you can't see it.
That is fantastic. So you'll have a swig of your red wine instead of your rum there, Alan.
Yes.
If you hold it up to the screen, we'll be able to see it, Alan.
I don't have it to hand to stream, I'm
No,
sorry.
you won't.
Okay. What about the other one?
No, move on.
All right, any other questions or comments?
That's a big aspiration to be able to get a postmark from and you look at the front side and there's an illustration of the same. That's really hard.
I've got probably 40 or 50 of them.
Oh, that's well done, Alan.
Gee, that's all right.
Yeah.
It's taken me about 40 or 50 years.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Have
Well,
you got
I
a
did-
friendly lithographer? Have you got a friendly helper, a lithographer? It'll
Sorry,
put on
Ian?
whatever postmark you want.
Well, I try to do the same with stamps on first day covers. Trying to get a relevant postmark to the stamp, depending on what the stamp is. You know, if it's a a person, get a postmark on when it's the first day of issue at that birthday, at the birthplace of the of that particular person. So, but I've probably got about 100 of those. But that's taken me probably about 30 years just to get that.
Yeah, it takes
Guys
a
have
long
got way too much time.
Well, it adds flavour to collecting. You got to think outside the square, Gary.
Way
right.
too much time.
All right, Ian Gregg, you're up next.
Come on,
Okay,
Ian.
thank you. Good morning, everybody. While we wait for the slide, thank you, Frank. Okay, good morning. Apologies, this is not festive at all, but this is the Christmas quiz, I'm afraid. This is an item that came up in auction fairly recently, and I apologise if the underbidder is online, and I'll be welcome what they thought they were buying when they bid for it. And also apologies to Brian because he's seen it before. This is a standard UPU penny halfpenny rate postcard to New York, as you can see, but strangely surcharged 1 shilling, which when you think about the postage rate was a penny halfpenny, a shilling is an enormous surcharge. I'm going to come back to the card, but perhaps we could go to the next slide, please, because it'll explain what I think may be hiding behind that postcard. The second slide I'm showing here is a late fee cover. This is a double rate cover with 6p late fee sent from the General Post Office before 3:30 in the afternoon of the day of the boat was sailing, and I'll come back to that in a second. But I just wanted to show a late fee, and the English Mail TPO, although it's not a particularly good cancel, is important on that. So can we go to the next one, please? Thank you. The second one is a fairly unknown system that was introduced by the UPU regulations, and that was what was called urgent letters. Now, an urgent letter was charged 6p over the standard postage fee, and basically they had these green forms stuck on them. The urgent cancellation only appears on one of the 2 known copies of this or recorded copies of these letters, but the important thing really, the label tells you everything, and it's for immediate delivery by the telegraph messenger. So that's the second one. So if we go on to the next slide, please. Right, now this is the reverse of the postcard, and there's 2 things on here, one of which is a fairly recent discovery, or I found out. The first one is that the date at the top is important, the 26th of February 1897. The stamp at the bottom corner, as far as I can make out, is actually an Israeli collection stamp. It's an owner's stamp. So I think the postcard was obviously recognized as being fairly important, because I think it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the only postal stationery item I've ever seen with a collector's mark on the back. So if we can go to the last slide, please. I'll try and explain what I think happened, and I would be very much welcome any thoughts from anyone else. I believe this postcard, bearing in mind it was written on the 27th and not posted to March the 2nd, actually was stuck in someone's pocket and they forgot to post it. The item was actually posted, and we can tell by the X in the postmark, the Melbourne postmark, it wasn't posted until, I need to check my notes, sorry. I think it was 3:30. X stands for between 3:30 and 4:30 in the afternoon. Now, mail to catch the train to Adelaide had to be at Spencer Street Station by 5 minutes past 4 in the afternoon. The late fee standard from the GPO finished at 3:30, and if this had caught that, it should have had a TPO cancellation to it. I think what happened to this, possibly, is that the person found it, got the postcard, rushed to the GPO, handed it in and said, look, I'm going to pay the late fee, which was 6p, and I'd also ask you to send this by urgent letter down to Spencer Street Station, which was the second 6p, which would explain the shilling. Whether it was accepted by the post office or not, we can't tell. But what clearly happened was that it missed the train and hence didn't go down to Adelaide and catch the normal route from Adelaide across to the UK and then across to the United States. But what we do know, and I'll explain why in a second, is that someone sent this then down to Sydney, where it caught a ship from Sydney across, and it went on what was called the All Red route, which is not a particularly well-known route. And I should explain, the All Red route means that it went entirely by the British Empire. It went across to Canada, and we can see that by the Vancouver arrival mark of April the 3rd, and then went up to New York from there. So that's my explanation of this, but I'd welcome if anyone has any further thoughts. As I say, not particularly festive, but hopefully a bit of a braid teaser.
Ian, what's the Nassau at the base?
Pardon?
The Nassau at the base. It's been either redirected.
It was redirected in New York, I think, or from New York. I have to say, pardon?
Nassau Street is a street in New York.
Yeah, I was a bit puzzled by the dates in New York, but of course the Americans did everything the other way around, don't they? Yeah. So the 4th, that's the 11th of April, 97, and I couldn't explain what happened to it between April and November initially, but I did get that one sorted out.
Mm.
Well, Nassau Street is where all the stamp dealers were.
Yep.
Sure.
Lots of stamp dealers are in Nassau.
Yeah,
that's true.
Ian, anyway. I can't speak for Melbourne, but in Adelaide, the late fees used to go up exponentially the closer you got to the sailing time.
Yeah.
They had a late fee bag hung up at the Adelaide railway station, which used to cost a lot more than the one at the Adelaide GPO. So
indeed. Well, exactly that's in basically the late fees were between 1.30 and 2.30 was 3p if posted at the GPO, and then between 2 and 2.30 it was 6p. And initially, if it was sent from the Spencer Street Station, it could be sent up to the departure of the train at 4:05, which was a shilling, but that went down in 1891 to 6p. So what I'm saying is, I think this missed the GPO 6p late fee, but would have been in time if it got down to Spencer Street Station to get the 6p late fee. But the other 6p on there is the urgent letter, and I think the postman or the person who received the letter was supposed to give it to the telegraph boy who was going to run it down to the station to get it onto the train. But whether they didn't agree to that, or the fact that the lad didn't get down there in time, I don't know. But I can't explain the shilling otherwise.
It's tough work, that one.
Well, it's an interesting piece of postal history, because it's normally postal history is about what's on there working it out, but this is rather what's not on there working it out.
True. I think I've got the other one that's got the boxed urgent as well.
Right. Have you got the box? You got the boxed urgent on, have you?
Yeah, but it doesn't have the green label.
Oh, right. Okay.
I can fish it out and have a quick look, actually.
Well, I think the way that system worked was, the idea was that the receiving office would have put the green label on there. The two that are recorded, the other one doesn't have the urgent cancellation on, but they put the green label on basically so that when it arrived at the receiving office, it was very apparent that there was something special about it, and it would be fished out urgently and sent off by the telegraph boy. Obviously, this one wouldn't have needed that because unusually it's being sent out urgently from the receiving office and being sent down to Spencer Street Station. Obviously, because it was going on to New York, it wouldn't have. My assumption is they didn't put the label on because it would just cause confusion. But I really can't think, bearing in mind who sent this potentially, I can't imagine that they would have put a shilling extra on the postcard over and above the postage rate of a penny halfpenny.
I've got my urgent one here.
Ah, right.
Not sure, you can't see that, but it doesn't have the label on it, and it's 1892, and it's a departmental notice to the juror.
Oh, right.
But
Ian,
it doesn't even look like it ever had a label either.
Ian, with the one that had the label on it, the label is obscuring the address.
Yeah. It's I think it's I'll dig it out while we're on and come back to it later, but I think it's to Sydney, I think.
But how would the telegram boy know where to deliver it?
Oh no, it's only stuck down the side, so you can pull the label back.
You can pull the labels off.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
In late fees, I've just mounted up a Mauritius late fee 1876. 2 o'clock was the closing time for the monthly mail steamer. After 4 o'clock, it was 5 shillings in 1876.
Whoa.
2 known covers.
And you've got the 5 shilling one.
I've got a 5 shilling one. Yeah, I've got
wow.
Sixpence and a shilling. I've got the whole range. Yep.
That is a 5 shillings. That's a lot of money back then.
Be a month's work, wouldn't it?
Depends who you are.
Clearly it was an indication the post office didn't want to deal with them.
It was only for emergencies ago, I guess.
Sure.
How many other urgents do you record, Ian? I only record the one that you've got in mind, but there must be others.
Well, I believe, well, I didn't know of your copy, but on my page it says there's 2. I've seen 2 in catalogues. One has the urgent cancellation and the other doesn't. I do have a stamped statute, 6penny with 2pence on a cover, which is just a cutout, and I suspect that is also an urgent delivery cover. But I think that's fairly philatelic. But
okay.
I don't know of many more. If anyone knows of more, I'm always interested to know. But we've probably increased the known recorded numbers by 50% this morning.
You've doubled it nearly.
Gary, could you send me a scan of it? I'd be interested to see it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll go on to our next presenter, Jim Shaw.
Oh, hi guys.
Oh my God.
Now, you're talking about trying to sort out things. This is a real woozer for you.
That is a woozer.
You can see it's fairly well travelled. It initially went to Bombay, and the trouble was the addressee couldn't be found, so it sort of did the rounds a little bit. And it went around quite a bit parts of India, but eventually made its way back to New Zealand. And the rear there, you can see the different types of cancellations used. And it's a bit of a fruit salad. So I'm having fun with a few of these at the moment, trying to sort them out.
One out? I mean, normally I can sort most things out. I look at that and go, no chance.
When was it, Jim? What year is it?
That was in 1931.
Oh, it's a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the stamp on it, you can see the stamp there is of that era.
Yeah,
New Zealand stamp. So and it is there is a number of postmarks on the front and the reverse of that era. So, and it got back to New Zealand sort of March 1932. So, you know, I think they tried their best to try and deliver it, but I think they got pretty perplexed when they tried to sort it out with all the cancellations. Okay, we'll try the next one, shall we? Oh, this is a more modern one, and as you're all well aware, you know, I collected the decimal stamps from New Zealand and had quite a good exhibit on that. This is one of the original finds I made back in 1976, and you know, going through a batch of booklets which came in packs of 150, I think it was, and I used to go through these every week, and I came up with quite a few errors, and this was one of the remarkable ones. And, you know, the only other time inverted colour in New Zealand was the back with the fourpenny Taupo issue, which has gone through the roof over the years. So this one, there was 25 panes in the booklet sheet that was printed upside down, back to front, in other words, when it was put through the machine, because obviously in the gravure process, they must have printed 4 colours and then gone through the 5th one in a separate operation. In those days, I guess De La Rue had its issues in terms of multicolour printing. And
so you bought all 25 of them, did you?
No, I only found 4 of them, but other collectors around New Zealand found a few here and there. I suspect that probably, though, at some stage there are used ones that probably you were actually issued. So that's yet to be found. I've never heard of a used one being found. So rather interesting. Okay, try the next one, please. Well, this is rather an interesting item I acquired recently. This has become part of my halfpenny bantam exhibit. Now, I have an exhibit in the New Zealand Stamp Show, which has now been deferred twice and is now appearing in February. This hasn't made it to that exhibit yet, but I think I might update it because this is quite a nice item. It was a usage from 1877. These stamps were issued in 1873. And to be used on a newspaper, I think is extremely scarce and difficult to acquire. So
I used to own that.
Yeah. And
that was mine. I put it up for auction because I was looking around. I don't got no use for this.
And 1870, in the course of the Ballarat Council is on it. So that really confirms that it is genuine. So no, I'm rather pleased. But you know, if you can get around to looking at the New Zealand site, you know, you'll see my 16-page exhibit on there. I also have an 8-framer, of course, in my wages tax. So that's it, guys.
All right, thanks, Jim. Any questions or comments from people?
All quiet on the Western Front.
They're all quiet. It's Kiwis. That's why it's all about the Kiwi stuff.
Well, if anyone's got any well-travelled covers, I'll be interested.
All right. Next is Gary Diffin.
Oh, here we go. At the moment, I'm in the middle of, and this isn't a Christmas theme or whatever, just reformatting and getting my Gallipoli exhibit into a place where I think it's as good as it's ever going to get. So I'm doing a lot of reformatting, and so I thought I'll most of the things that everyone's seen of my stuff in the last 3 or 4 years has been my colonial mail. So what I thought I'd do is just bring the Gallipoli out. Where this comes in is the shortage of the writing materials in Gallipoli. So my grandfather was a soldier at Gallipoli. They arrived at the 25th of April, and my grandfather was in the second wave. So when they were in the second wave, the first wave got there at about 4:30 a.m. My grandfather jumped on the beach at 9 a.m. but the Turks knew they were there. So the Turks started shooting at them, and my grandfather jumped off the lighter, and his best mate was standing next to him, and he got shot and killed. So they were trying to do was get off the lighters and get up up to the beach. So my grandfather dropped his pack, held onto his rifle, and they ran for cover. So all of these packs had things in it. Part of them was some food, and part of it was writing materials. So when the packs, Thomas Cook, who was the travel agents, they had the contract to take the packs that were abandoned on Gallipoli and take them back to Australia. So when my grandfather dropped his pack on the beach, picked up by Thomas Cook, taken back to Australia, and it was delivered back to my great-grandparents. Included in that pack was his camera, because they all thought this was going to be a great adventure. So when the pack arrived at my great-grandparents' place, they thought my grandfather had been killed on the beaches. And he took it, and it took about a couple of months until he was actually able to write a postcard home to say, hey, I'm okay. So you fast forward from April, and you get to, by the time you get to May, it's basically the start of June, and there was no writing materials. And people were looking, or soldiers were looking around for writing materials. The most common thing that you'll see, and there's probably about 40 or 50 of these, is ammunition boxes. So inside the ammunition boxes, you know, they were wooden boxes, and they carried up with pieces of rope. But inside the cartridges or the shells or the bullets were encompassed in cardboard. And so what they did is they grabbed this cardboard, cut them up into postcards, and sent them home. And here's two examples of the ammunition boxes. It's just straight cardboard, and they cut them up into postcards. The top one, it's got postcard written on it, and they sent all these home. I mean, if you go around when Gallipoli or World War I was really popular in Australia, and this would be, say, 30, 40 years ago, there's always, you know, half a dozen or 10 hands up for Gallipoli stuff. Sadly, that's not the case now, but these things are relatively scarce. And you can see the bottom one, it's got the two vertical lines, and that's been crossed out by the censor. So let's move on forward, Frank. This, I think, for me is my favorite thing probably of all time. So what you see is it's a faulty postcard. At the top right, you see at the bottom image, you'll see a hole in it. And what that hole represents is a piece of shrapnel. So if you put your hand over that postcard, and if you go back and you think, hey, I'm writing a letter, and then all of a sudden something scares you, and you go horizontally forward and backwards, you can see that in the middle of the card, whereby the guy is writing home, and you'll see halfway down the bottom there's this scrape left to right. That's where the shrapnel pellet has gone straight through the postcard. And what he does is that the soldier is something like Jimmy Smith, and he writes here, I hope you'll excuse this card, but a shrapnel pellet has just gone through it. So this is, to the mark, one of the most immediate items you'll ever see in a feature of war, and it sits right in front of you, and there's a shrapnel pellet through it. If you turn it over, you've got the Special Crown Virginia cigarettes. It's the only one I've ever seen coming out of Gallipoli. So it's, for me, this has probably been my most important thing or item coming out of Gallipoli. Sorry, it's not on the Christmas theme, but let's move on, Frank. This is actually from the same soldier as the previous card, and it's the Nestle chocolate box. And you've got a feel for this guy, because he's writing home and says, Dear Flo, and I'll praise it through and say, well, Now, I've written to you 7 or 8 times and you haven't written back. We used to hold hands in Sydney and walk down the street. Why don't you write to me back? I mean, you think the poor bastard, at least put him out of his misery, or, you know, send him something to say, you know, thank you. But this is, again, it's the only item I've seen of a Nestle chocolate box that's been sent from Gallipoli. Move on. Thank you. This is a bit different. These were the Deacon's jam and marmalades. Deacon's had the contract from Great Britain or England to supply jams to the soldiers at Gallipoli. So there'd be a huge carton of these jams that had arrived. And on the top, I think there's 6 or 8 of these postcards that you see. And you just separate, you can see at the top of this Deacon's postcard, there's these roulettes, or, you know, perforation roulettes. So you separate them. So there was 6 to 8 of these in every carton. And what they do is that these were for the soldiers to use to send home. And so what you see on this one and another one that I have is you'll see the indentations of the jam tins on the cards. So you know that the jam tins were sitting on top. They placed the cards on top of the jam tins, and you can see the indented impressions of the jam tins.
Wow.
So I've only seen 4 of these, of the colour ones. There's less of the black and white ones. And 3 of them to Australia and 1 to New Zealand. Next one. Now, this guy, he was pretty ingenuity, because the thing is, there's no writing materials, there's no postcards, there's no field postcards, no honour envelopes, there's nothing. And so this guy, this sapper, has just received an envelope from his father in Broken Hill. And he said, well, I need to write home and there's no other way to do it. So he's kept the envelope, crossed out the address to himself, readdressed it back to his father, and stitched up the enclosure at the top with a very dark green thread. So this is the only one I've ever seen. It's a great piece, and it harks of the ingenuity of they had to find things to write home, because there's nothing that they have around them. Next one. I think this is the final one, Frank, and this is a cigarette carton. Now, most of us are used to, you go down, oh, I don't know, I don't smoke, but you look in the Coles and they've got boxes of 20 or 30 or 40 cigarettes, and then you could get those boxes and release them. So what this is, back in those days, you used to buy a packet of smokes, but there's only 5 in it. So this is a packet of cigarettes with 5 in it, and it's been opened up, and they've written inside this cigarette box and sent it back home. I've only ever seen 4 of these, and all of them addressed to South Australia, and all of them are from I think it's the 4th Light Horse Regiment. It's really unusual, and it's a great piece from Gallipoli. I think that's it for me. It doesn't have a Christmas theme, but it's what I'm working on at the moment.
No, I reckon it's great. I haven't even seen any of these. I don't even know anything about any of these, so it's fantastic. Any questions or comments from out there? No.
Nobody loves me.
You've answered all the questions, Gary.
No, I don't know about that. Actually, the thing that's about, if you go back to the jam tins, yeah, this one. No, the other one.
Next one.
Yep. The thing is, no, back one.
One more.
One more.
Yeah,
that one.
Stop.
The thing that's interesting about these jam tins is that once they took the jam tins up to the line and gave them to all the soldiers. Once the jam tins were finished, they took all those jam tins back to the beachhead, and what they do is that they make hand grenades, out of these jam tins. So they'd fill it full of bolts, they'd fill them full of shrapnel and stuff that they was lying around, and box it all up and put some powder in it, take it back to the front line, and they'd throw these jam tins at the Turks. So these are the grenades that were used at Gallipoli. They were made of Deacon's jam tins. So I thought I'd add that little one there.
Are you expecting us to take that comment seriously, Gary?
No, it's true. That's absolutely true.
Right. Well, I don't believe you for one.
Absolutely. You can look it up. The Deacon's jam tins, they used them as grenades.
Wow.
What
After they'd had the jam.
Well, what the Turks used to do is that they used to have these much smaller balls, iron balls, and they'd fill it and they'd throw them as grenades into the Aussie trenches. But the thing is that they're almost like cricket balls, which is true. And so what some of the soldiers used to do, they manufacture a cricket bat. And when these things started coming over the trenches, one guy with a cricket bat would just pick it up and belt it back. Now, the thing is, you could do that for so long. I mean, the reality is you'll have a fuse. There's a fuse in these things. And the reality is that these fuses do run out. And the reality is you don't pick them up quick enough to be able to get them back. And so many guys who had these cricket bats, they were good for about for an hour or two. But I tell you what, there's no longevity in that. No longevity in that. And you hear a lot of guys who tried sending the grenades back only to blow up their hand or worse doing this. It's the reality. I mean, my grandfather, I can tell you stories about my grandfather being there, and you'll never want to do that, or you never want to hear that stuff.
Luckily, our kids didn't know about this sort of thing. Getting jam tins to do grenades.
That's what they did. The Deacon's jam tins are made into grenades.
We probably did worse than that when we were kids.
I don't know about you. I didn't.
My father from the Second World War, his army had a bullet hole going straight through it.
Yeah, my grandfather had a bullet hole in his what do you call his Bible? He had a little small Bible that he and it stopped. The bullet didn't go through. It was so compact, this Bible, and it was, I don't know where he kept it, but I tell you what, you can see the indentation of the bullet. So
he had God on his side.
Yeah, that's right. Any other questions or comments?
I think it's quite surprising we've got Gary at all.
That's what I've always thought. And not only
You can
from my
take that
grandfather.
either way, Gary.
And this is not only from my grandfather, but my father as well. And he's got stories.
Mr. Shawley, you're up next.
Okay, well, a slight connection with what Gary has just been saying. British Central Africa and Iceland, and one of the things there are the cigarette packets are in 50s, not 5s. And always you buy a shirt with a large enough pocket to keep a packet of 50 in it. And the back of the packets are always used as a notepad. So there's a little bit of a connection there, but that's where the connections end. General theme, post early for Christmas. So on to the first slide. Now I'll go into a little bit in the map about this, but here you are from the north of Nyasaland, 3 months plus to get to London, written on the 1st of October and gets into London on January the 3rd. So Mrs. Christmas. But if you go to the next slide, we'll get a general idea why. Now, let me just take you through this map. Abercorn, where that card was written, is right at the top right-hand side, just below the base of Lake Tanganyika. The card went there to the east to Karonga, which is on the top of the lake. I've said it was by runner, and that's the way that that would have gone. I also say it gets a runner down to Fort Johnson at the bottom of the lake, but I've actually done a bit more research, and probably it went on a German steamer, the Visman, which took it down to Fort Johnson at the bottom of the lake. It would then have had a runner to Blantyre, and then by a runner and the Shuri or Zambezi rivers to Shindi, which is right on the bottom right-hand side in Portuguese East Africa. To give you some bearings, this map is fairly contemporaneous. British Central Africa is shown as a very large area, and this is because of Cecil Rhodes. And in fact, the first postmaster, who was based up at Abercorn, was told how important his role was, because Abercorn was going to form a part of Cecil Rhodes' dream of Cape Town to Cairo. Of course, that was not to happen. And you look over to the right and you see German, and that's the beginning of German East Africa, which then became Tanganyika and then Tanzania as it is now. To the west of all of that is the Congo. The Matabele land and Mashonaland, bottom left, is southern Rhodesia, and Zambia, northern Rhodesia, was where the Lake Gwelo at the top is, in British Central Africa. So Nyasaland is actually a relatively thin country that follows the lake, and then goes down to Portuguese East Africa. So 3 months in transit. So interesting journey. He thought he was planning well by writing in the 1st of October, but he didn't make it. The next card is actually local, and I think it's a complete spoof, but it's written supposedly on the 25th of September, 1896, and it relates to a Christmas holidays, which is, and this is a local card, so it's virtually just going next door. Lord Joseph Kirk has great pleasure in inviting Sir Arthur and Lady Look to his castle for Christmas holidays, lion shooting, RSVP. Addressed to Sir Arthur Burrup. I thought for the time there's a Burrup Peninsula in WA, but that actually comes from an Aboriginal name over here, amazingly. And I think all the names, I can't find anything about Sprague lands or anything like that. So bearing in mind there weren't very many Europeans in British Central Africa at the time. So I think just a bit of a joke. Next one, thank you, Frank. This is a locally produced card from Missionaries, 1894. And it's a drawing that shows crocodiles which are on the lake. And it's a happy Christmas message in Chinyanja, which is the local language. It took 2 months to get to Edinburgh, which is not bad. And then it took 3 days to get to Innsbruck, where it was forwarded. So interesting, missionaries were a very important part of the activity in Nyasaland. And the statement used to be that there are 3 scourges of the Rhodesias and Nyasaland: the white ants, the Scots, and the missionaries. Next card, please. German card, you saw German East Africa to the top. Now, Malanje is actually much further south, big tea growing area. This is a card to Germany, written 9th of November, but it didn't get to its destination until the Darmstadt in Germany until the 21st. Interestingly enough, it has a Cape Colony. It's gone by way of the Cape. The mail variously it could either go north along the coast to Zanzibar and then up the east coast, or could go down to the Cape and then round the other way. So there were 2 options, and it's interesting to collect mail with the markings that show either Zanzibar or the Cape. Next one, please. This is 1913, quite a little bit later. As I shall be away from the 24th to the 28th December, please send the turkey on the 29th or on the 2nd of January. And that's gone from Zomba, which was the commercial capital, to, so the administrative capital, to Blantyre, which was the commercial capital. rather tatty card, but I think a bit of fun and a bit Christmassy. I think that's it, Frank, I think.
I think that's it. Any questions or comments?
John, on your first card, you said there was a runner that took the mail from Abercorn.
Yep.
But that's looks like it's over 200 miles.
Absolutely. They were chains of runners that ran the mail, and it was
Thank God for that.
it was very much the way mail was done. And in fact, I've got newspapers from not far off this period where the mail runners were attacked by lions, and there's always a problem because they were given a gun, and they carried their gun and the mail. And if they got stuck on a stream, and this happened to one of the postmen, he had to make a decision. Do I keep my gun or do I get rid of the mail? And they always kept the gun.
Very sensible.
Any other questions or comments?
How scarce is this stuff, John?
I beg pardon?
How scarce is this stuff?
Oh, there's a lot of postcards at the time. The early 1890s, 1894 is difficult, but then from the 1900 on, it gets quite a bit more. But still, the European population was still pretty low.
Yeah.
All right, Martin Walker, you're up next.
Thank you. Oh, you've added some text. Okay, thank you for that. Right, so I've selected 5 items and sort of 5 different things that I have an interest in. One of them, people may have seen my display on disinfected mail and the like, Australian mail treated against disease. Now, what I haven't included in that collection, things from quarantine stations when they're actually in use for other things. And of course, we have the big debate going on here now where they want to build permanent quarantine stations as to what do you do with them when you have no quarantine need for them. So as always, you look to history and you find an answer. And this is what the Victorians did with the station at Portsea in 1909. They used to run education department summer camps. And so there's a syllabus of lectures there and a special education department postcard showing the quarantine station hospital, which has been sent by someone attending the school. And it's got, unfortunately, not the clearest, but a genuine commercial example of the quarantine station telephone office postmark on it. There's actually a set of those cards, and this is the only one I've ever had the opportunity to buy, but I've seen others illustrated in the Victorian State Library website, where they have their collection of Victorian photographs. So there are some others out there, but whether there's any available to add to this one for my collection, I have yet to see. So the next one, Frank. As many of you know, I live in a town called Gawler, which is sort of 40 odd K north of Adelaide. And I also, when I was researching my book on South Australian post offices, learned through that race courses and big sporting venues used to have telegraph offices set up in them so that the results could be sent into the Adelaide newspapers and beyond. And more importantly, the results could be sent to Adelaide bookmakers so that they could settle all of their wages. So Martin Frischoff, who many of you will know, had a collection of telegrams and which I bought. And so I was actually thrilled to find in a great hoard of telegrams, one sent from the Gawler Racecourse in 1918. And it's not to a newspaper, not to a bookmaker, but it's someone celebrating a win that they had. And so in 1918, someone put £10 on a horse on the last race of the Gawler Cup Day. So I looked up the newspaper and I'm thinking £10 was a fantastic amount in 1918 to bet on a horse. And lucky for them, it came in and it paid £2.14 on the tote. So that was for each pound. So they came away from the Gawler races that day very happy. I'll put in a plug here. I'm decided I don't have enough to do in retirement, so I'm looking to write a book on Gawler's postal history. So I'm looking, I mean, Gawler material is not particularly rare, but what I'm trying to do is get a large spread of different items used to or from Gawler. So telegrams and early covers, recent covers, all sorts of things, postal notes and the like. So,
Martin, the Gawler racecourse was the site of the military camp.
yes, so I have a 3-frame exhibit of World War I postcards to do with the military camp. Went to Kanakali for that display that Bernie Beston and Gary Brown organised.
Yeah, it's
yes.
a great piece. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. All right, next one, Frank. Next year, the National One Frame exhibition is going to be here in Adelaide, and it celebrates the 150th anniversary of the Overland Telegraph Line. And for some people like me, it also celebrates the 50th anniversary of ANPEC 72. And this is a telegram sent from ANPEC 72 with somebody's results for the entry that they had in there in the exhibition there.
Mm-hmm.
So telegrams with stamps on as originating telegrams are a lot scarcer than ones that were received by people. So I'm just pleased to have some of these. As part of the exhibition that we're running next year, we're having a special section for people who participated in ANPEC 72. So I've been going through the old catalogues, and there's about 15 people that I can see in the catalogue who are still active in philately now. And I'm encouraging them to enter ANPECs, and they'll get a special little memento to signify their 50th anniversary of exhibiting. So if you hear of anyone who was in ANPEC 72, please encourage them to send an entry across. It's a 1-framer, so it's only $45, which is about 1/5 of what an international costs at the moment. It's much better value for money. Okay, thanks, Frank. And because it's Christmas, a couple of slides of Christmas items. Because I'm president of 3 clubs, I'm always looking for displays. I always have a bit of a Christmas stuff out at this time of the year for those, all members displays of Christmas related items. Because I was in retail all my life, I always have an interest in the way things are advertised. And I've often thought a display of how stamps were advertised might be an interesting display for some people. But the Christmas seals that were issued in America were advertised by many forms, ranging from postcards and leaflets and advertisements. But the more unusual one are these little collars. So it's a paper collar, which is designed to fit around the neck of a milk bottle. And so when the milky delivered your bottles of milk on your doorstep, you'd put one of them collars around, encourage you to buy Christmas seals, because as we know, that milk was a useful defence against TB. And there's a whole series of those running from about the 1930s through to about 1950s, different design for each year. So most attractive. And the final one, those of us in Australia who've been collecting for a while will remember the Surfing Santa controversy, when Australia Post issued a stamp with the Surfing Santa design on it for sending your Christmas cards. And that was designed by a gentleman called Roger Roberts, who's actually an Adelaide-born artist. And so it was wondered at the time whether he was influenced by this Christmas seal that was put out by the South Australian TB Association. So I also have an accumulation of these for running over a series of years. So shown there is the leaflet that promoted the Christmas seal appeal for 1958, and a set of 6 blocks of stamps being colour separations through to the final perforated stamps there in the lower right-hand corner. So happy Christmas and fight TB and everything else that's going around.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Christmas seals are interesting, aren't they?
Yes, it's a very big collectible in, well, Denmark, obviously, where they came from, and the United States. There's several websites on United States Christmas seals if you search for them.
Yeah, you just remember when you were a kid, you used to see these things.
Yes.
Not so much anymore.
No, and Frank might be interested to know that these were printed by the Griffin Press, who made many of the Wesley covers.
Okay, thanks, Martin. Well, the next one up is me.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, as you all know, I collect first day covers. That was my first love, and I kind of got to like hand painted covers. There's been a few artists who've done hand painted covers over the years, from 1950s to 1970s. But one that isn't known is Joyce Green. And Joyce Green was a commercial artist in Rockhampton in Queensland. She started probably doing first day covers from 1957 to the late mid 80s. I've got a majority. I've probably got about 200 of her first day
You're
covers.
a hoarder, Frank.
Pardon?
You're a hoarder.
I am. They came in a big Lightning auction. So, to do a Christmas, since this was Christmas, I thought I'd do a Christmas theme. But another thing about Joyce is she loved painting horses. So most of these covers that you see for Christmas will have a horse and cart or whatever on. These first two first day covers, the 1969 Christmas, as you can see, got two horses on there, with the carriage on it. I love the 1970, the second one, the 1970 Christmas with Santa and his presents and that. So yeah, as you can see, she loved horses. So the 1972 Christmas, it's got horses in them. One thing I'll add is she did about 15 covers for the 1960 Melbourne Cup stand. So she went to town on that one, and they're all different. Every single one of those covers are different. As you can see, these two 1972 Christmas hand painted covers, both different. So you won't get, even if the scene is the same, looks the same, there is a difference in the scene. So yeah. And the last one is the 1979 and the 1979 Christmas, the 15 cent and the 25 cent stamp. As you can see, another horse. For the 1979 Christmas, she did 5 covers. This is the only one that hasn't got a horse in the scene. It's got Santa and the child with her wish list.
Mm.
So yeah, no, I find that these are really interesting covers. Especially the hand painted ones. You've only got a few artists that done hand painted. You've got Odgern, you've got Jack Peake, and Joyce Green is one of the ones that is really unknown. All right, any questions or?
Where'd you get all these, Frank?
Auctions.
You said you bought this one, or most of Joyce Green.
There was one lot that was in Craig Chappell's auction years ago in the early 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And that had about 100 of Joyce Green covers. She also did, I forgot to mention, she also did covers for New Zealand, Norfolk Island, and and Canada and the US.
Is there only one of each, Frank?
There's only one of each, and every cover is unique or different. Like for the some of these issues, I've got 5 different covers, and they're all different.
So all of these hand painted artists, there must be only a limited amount of them that were prolific during this period.
There is. There's, like I said, there's Eric Ogden, who did from 1950 to 1966. There's Jack Peake. Who started, I think, in 1951, if I'm right, Martin. And
probably earlier. Yeah.
No, 1948.
Yep.
Yes, 1948. Yeah. Eric Ogden and Jack Peake are probably the main ones that are artists that have done the hand painted first day covers. Jack Peake did woodblocks as well. And Joyce Green is the other person that, just come out of the blue. I didn't know until I bought that auction lot from Craig Chappell about Joyce Green. And and then all of a sudden they started popping up.
Frank,
All
did
right.
she post everyone she did to herself?
Yes, 90% of it is to herself. There's one other pen pal that she had, which was Joyce Tinney, who lived in Maryborough or something in Queensland. But all of them mostly are addressed to Joyce Green.
Frank, is there any evidence whether they were painted before they were sent or whether it was afterwards? I know it's a rather academic question, but
Who knows? I don't know. There's no evidence that they were done before or after. 99% of me thinks they were done after, because you have a look. If you have a look at the artwork that's that's done to it. If you're doing 5 or 10 covers, I think I don't think you're going to be able to do them before the actual date of issue.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
You'll be doing them after the date of issue. See, in America, if the cachet is done after the date of issue, it's got to have a hand stamp on the back saying it was done after the date. Whereas these don't.
If they were painted in advance, they could have got lost in the supply chain. Somebody
Oh,
could have taken
they would have
a
been
fancy
lost. They
to them.
would have been snapped up.
Yeah. Fantastic works of art. Wow.
It is.
This takes a lot of time to do something like that.
It does. Well, I know my wife Karen, most of you know her, is a budding artist. She just started. That's been a COVID project, and she's been doing a few bits and pieces, and it's been taking her weeks and months to do just one small painting.
you got her working on some covers, Frank, have you?
Fun?
You got her working on some covers.
No. She won't do that for me. She reckons that she's had enough of covers. All right, anything else?
I have got that urgent letter if anyone's interested.
Yes.
If you can do you want to put me on screen? So
You have to share it.
Hang on, I'll just stop sharing.
Okay, that's if you can see it, and it just flips open.
Folds away.
Yeah.
And
then
that's interesting.
Back is there. So this was actually sent to somewhere in Melbourne from. It was posted in Maryborough, and then was delivered in Melbourne.
Not many of those would have survived in that good condition.
No.
Well, Ian's got the only one with the label, and I've got one that's.
No, there is one other with the label on.
Is there?
Yeah, but it doesn't have the urgent.
Oh, okay.
But
So I've got
what's
the urgent
interesting-
without the label.
Which is interesting because, Gary, is yours posted within the same town that it was delivered? Can you tell?
Yeah, it's from Melbourne, 9th of April, 1892.
Yeah.
And then it's sent to Footscray, which is
Yeah,
across
right.
the Westgate.
Is that within Is that within the post? Is that within
Yeah.
walking distance of Melbourne?
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I think that's the same as my postcard, because it was delivered direct from the post box. Sorry, the post office it was posted in. It didn't get the green label.
Yeah,
'Cause the
mine's
green-
got on the back, it was notice to juror. You've been
Yeah.
summoned to attend a jury. And there's a hand stamp on the back, which I've never seen before. Central Bailiwick Sheriff with a crown.
Isn't that the fiscal one? The fiscal postmark.
I think it would be. Yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
postal postmark.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think you'll find that sounds very similar to ones you see on the fiscal slips, if you know what I mean, the stamp duty,
Yes.
the stamp statute slip. Sorry.
Can I just add something to that? It's more like it's an forerunner of the express delivery service. So basically it went express from the delivery office and they just sent it out with the telegram boy before the postman did his normal rounds of letter deliveries.
Yeah.
I've got one as well.
Yeah.
This is an Adelaide use and it's 1926.
Okay.
Yeah, it was,
It's a
I
lot
think
later.
it was a requirement under the UPU regulations. So it would come in 1891, basically when, when Victoria went into the UPU, and it was a service that was one of the services they had to add to their sort of, that they provided under the UPU regulations.
UPU regulations, yeah.
There's two covers illustrated in Eric Fraser and Robert Knockleshaw's book on labels, which are probably the ones that you and Gary have got.
The Victoria ones, are they?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Mine's ex Hugh Freeman.
Yeah.
Martin, have they both got green labels on, the ones you're...
I can't see the book on my shelf.
No, there are certainly two with green labels on that I've seen come up in auction.
Yes, I'm pretty sure they are the two.
But I suspect I've had this for at least 15, 20 years.
Yes.
I can't remember when I bought mine. Must be 5 years, I think, something like that. I would have thought, maybe longer.
Yeah, the one I have came in a collection of embossed envelopes, so it was the only reason I bought the collection.
Yeah. That happens, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes, any colonial express delivery covers are also extremely rare. So see those. I have a front. There's one South Australian one I've seen from the colonial period, and that's about it.
Must check my South Australian stuff.
All right, any other comments in regard to the presentations?
Yes, I've got a comment, Frank. I've checked while I secretly went away from the meeting and checked what I sent you.
Yep.
And sent 6 slides and you've only shown 4 of them. So I'm going to consider a censure motion.
So you're going to sack me as president?
Yeah, well, that means I'm the next president.
So what,
look out.
Look out.
Share the 2 slides right now if you like.
Hang on a minute. I'll see.
Can I ask a question, Mr. President?
You can.
Are we allowed to have a president who's resident on Easter Island? I think that's not really on for the Royal of Victoria.
No, these are some of the Rpsv members who are not joining us right now.
That's right.
I thought that was all the members of council standing to alert behind the potential president.
Who's to my right?
Alan Stratton. All right.
I actually got when I was at Easter Island, I got some stamps postmarked or some envelopes postmarked at Easter Island. It's very, very antiquated postal system there.
Alan, I apologise, you did, and I'm going to share the screen now. And
here we go.
I'm going to bring it up.
I withdraw the censure motion. Okay, go to the end or the second last one.
Okay.
There we go. So this is the letter from Campbell with a whoops. Back
there you
one.
go.
It's got a Camptown postmark or a private hand stamp. It's got a first allocation date stamp of 18. It's got a Launceston arrival mark, which is extremely rare, and it's to William Johnston. And none of those things in themselves would be all that exceptional. But if you go to the next slide, the content of the letter, have the kindness to send by first conveyance 1 cask of best rum, as I fear I shall not have sufficient for the Christmas. I hope you will not forget and send bill of particulars. Yours truly, James McNeil. Imagine the anguish writer. I'm happy now.
That's a classic. I like that. I'm sorry I missed it. I don't know how I missed that, Alan.
It's well, we've seen it now. That's good.
How big is the cask? How much rum did you get in the cask?
Enough to get you hammered.
Oh,
Probably 5 or 10 gallons.
yeah, I would think it's a 5-gallon cask.
Right, thank
He's
you.
a thirsty boy. So you can imagine what the quality of the rum was like. Oof.
Oh, this is best rum.
Yeah, that's right.
You can still imagine the quality of the rum.
Think of the trifle.
Yes. Actually, I'll probably enjoy the trifle more than I would the rum.
Well, and certainly lace your Christmas pudding.
But he was cutting it fine. He said it on the 22nd. So
Yeah, he was.
Cutting it fine.
successful.
All right, I'll stop sharing that. All right,
Good.
any other questions? If not, I would like to thank all our presenters. I think we had a really diverse and interesting, and I think this
Are you going to show mine, Frank?
Pardon?
Ian Sadler, I sent you 2. Are you going to show mine?
Did I get yours?
Yeah, well, I've got an email back from you. You got them yesterday, Wednesday afternoon.
You're doing well, Frank.
Oh, I'm doing well here.
Done it again.
I've done it again.
President, get the new president in.
Yeah. Ian, censure motion.
Yeah.
No.
No. We'll just show
Can't
it
do
now.
that
Come on,
with
Frank,
somebody
find
that's
it.
a
I will
volunteer.
find it.
Come on,
Just
guys, it's
give the man a
Christmas.
chance.
Give me a chance.
Get yourself another coffee or a glass of wine while he's doing it.
No more wine.
No more wine. I've had too much wine, that means.
And Ian, mind those elephants in case they attack you.
They haven't moved recently. Well, actually, they have, but not by themselves.
All right. Yours are in PDF form, so they're going to be hard to see. So, but I'll try it.
I'm not very clever with all this technology. I haven't got a grandson with me.
Oh, I
Gonna
get
make one.
Share the screen.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Are you able to pan down a bit by any chance?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Stop there, please.
Yep.
I've only got 2 slides and they're intimately related to Christmas, even though I haven't written them up separately. They're part of my exhibit on Japanese conquest and defeat in World War II. And they come from the Japanese withdrawal, starting to withdraw in 1943 and 44. This one you're looking at, really, you've got most of the details there if you can read it. Contrary to what Frank's saying, I think it's really quite clear. It's a registered army cover from Milne Bay, which is on the eastern tip of what's now Papua New Guinea, and sent, as you can see, to North Carlton in Victoria. And for the other Ian's information, now North Carlton is part of Melbourne, but we don't say Melbourne, we just give the suburb. You may or may not know that. And what this soldier was doing, if you could just pan down a little bit further, please. Thank you. What he was doing, and probably the reason it was uprated by an extra penny from its 6pence halfpenny, was so he could send this Christmas card from. He was a Royal Engineer, and he was sending this home to his wife and family in the Carlton suburb of Melbourne. So I thought that fitted the theme quite neatly. I'm not good at as good at researching things as you, but if you didn't spot it, the registered cover above was franked with 6pence halfpenny, which was a registration fee of 3pence and 2pence halfpenny for postage. I think that was because it wasn't covered by the many of these soldiers got free postage, probably not in this particular situation. If we go to my second cover, please, and I want to look at that top part. If we can just go up until we can see the V-mail, that's great, thank you. Many of you will know about V-mail. But for those that don't, this incidentally is sent by a sailor on the USS President Hayes to his parents in California. But it's not. It's been sent by V-mail. I think the V. I'm not sure if the V is for victory. Somebody can put me right, but I think it was V for victory. And what happened was it was censored at that ship, and then microfilmed. I imagine the older people will be able to remember microfilm and microfiche.
Yeah.
No, it's gone out now. And then it was printed on arrival so that his parents could get this message from the American ship in the Pacific. And I think you can see it, but let me read it to you. It sounds better reading. It's Christmas wishes for Mother and Dad. When I think of all I owe to you, there's so little I can say, especially when it's Christmas time and I'm so far away. But of all my wishes for joy and peace and a world of happiness too, we'll find our way back to home sweet home with affection for both of you and with lots of love from Lee. Not very deep philotetically speaking, but I think those two things show that Christmas was being celebrated in 1943 and 1944 in the Pacific. That's all from me, Frank.
All right, any comments or questions, Ian? All
Yeah,
right.
I got a quick question.
Yep.
What has he missed of yours?
I didn't send you.
Oh, thanks a lot, Steph.
I didn't send anything this year, but I do have something I could. If you could give me the screen, I've got one cover I could show.
Yeah, you can share your screen, Lester, if you want.
Down the bottom, the green thing that says share screen.
Okay.
Have you given him permission, Frank?
Yep.
Yeah.
Look.
Can you see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a label from the Dead Letter Office in Washington, D.C. This is the only copy known. What really makes it interesting is there's no Washington, D.C. cancel, although I think one of the numbers in the upper left is a Washington, D.C. registry number, but I'm not sure. But it's got a New York, in the lower right-hand corner has the New York registered hand stamp. This was sent in 1876. Now, I acquired this mainly because I collect U.S. official mail, and this is from one post office to another. It didn't require any stamps, according to at that time. But the really interesting thing is, this is going to a very small country, but it says returned letters with an S. That means there's more than one in there. Probably more than one. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. All the return letters everybody in the US has seen, dead letter office, they have a stamp on the back that says dead letter, and they went to wherever it was going, and the same coming back from Europe. But for some reason, there's no other examples. Probably the ones that were on, let's say, France or England, were bigger packages. Stamp collectors were looking for stamps and not covers. So this didn't have any stamps on it. It had a label, the registered label, the red one from Germany. But so I think the bigger packages were going like England or France or Germany probably got ripped up when they opened them up, and nobody ever saved them. And this is going into the U.S. Classic Society Journal, hopefully the next issue or the issue after that. Anyway, it's not Christmassy, but it is kind of an interesting cover.
Yep.
I originally thought it was mailed in New York, but I did some checking. There's no dead letter office in New York. It's all in Washington, D.C. And there's on the back, there's two cancels from Luxembourg. Another number for another registered number, maybe in in Luxembourg itself or someplace else. And then there's a big seal, and this cover was tied by string, I think around both horizontally and vertically. And on the back, the string is tied together, and there's a big wax seal on it with a big, huge metal cancel of some kind for the post office. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Very puzzling.
You need to unshare your screen. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we
There's
are,
the
thank you.
Whoops.
Well, yeah, I suspect, as you say, it was an internal use thing. So clearly they shouldn't be on the, they wouldn't normally come onto the public market. So, you know, but a very interesting item. Thank you.
Oh, it was offered to me by a dealer many years ago. At one point in time, I included it in my U.S. officials exhibit, but nobody ever asked me a question about it. No dealer, no collector, no judge, nobody. There was, here's this cover with no stamps on it in a stamp collection exhibit. And so I took it out, and then this summer I took it to we have a function here in the U.S. in New Orleans called The Happening, which has been going on for maybe 40 years. And I've been going down there about 25. And I asked one of the guys there, looked at it, oh, I've never seen that before. That's really neat. You need to write it up. The fact that it said letters, not just, dead letter office, but it was for letters with the S. So anyway, I think it's kind of interesting.
Thank you.
Oh, excellent. Really good. Any other comments or questions? Did I miss anybody else?
I found my copy of Fraser's book, so that there's only one illustrated in there, and it may be the one that Gary's got. I'll see if I can sort of get it in focus like that. Does that look familiar?
That's the other one I've seen, and I've seen that in an auction catalogue. It doesn't have the urgent on, does it?
No,
Not
that's not mine.
Not that it
Mine's-
says. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's going to show up well.
But it's a book on labels. So, but interestingly, he's recorded a 1938 label as well. So, yes.
Mine's not showing up. But I'll send you a scan, Ian.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Oh, quiet. All right. Thank you very much, everybody who presented tonight. Thanks. Thanks, Lester, and thanks, Ian. Even though I forgot you, I didn't mean to. I don't know how I did that. I think everybody's enjoyed themselves tonight. I think we've had a very diverse and a very interesting few of the presentations. With Stephanie's Christmas and stamps and that it was great, and going all the way to some classics. So it was really good. So thank you everybody for participating. I think it's been great. Pity we didn't get more members joining us, but it's Christmas time, so I didn't expect very much more. Any announcements or general interest? No. All right. January's daytime meeting and postal history meetings aren't happening. They don't normally happen in January. So our library afternoon is going to happen on the 29th of January at 2 p.m. Hopefully Richard will be able to open up the library for us. And our next philatelic meeting, which is going to be on the 20th of January, is 6 sheets from the council. So council members, get your 6 sheets ready. So you got all Christmas.
Yeah, chop.
Yeah. And Gary, I don't want to see any pages from your exhibits. I want something different.
You could do Easter Island, Gary.
No, just kidding.
Well, actually, I've got about 8 or 9 volumes of instructional markings of the Australian colonies that no one's ever seen.
Well, there you go. Six pages of instructional markings.
Yeah,
that'll give you a challenge.
So,
Anything else? Anybody else got anything? If not, I'd like to wish everybody very happy Christmas enjoy family and your loved ones, and have a healthy and happy new year. And I'll hopefully see you all in the new year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas, guys.
everyone.
Enjoy.
See you later.
Bye.
Cheers.
Drink more gin.